Folks, we have devastating polling out for the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party has hit an all-time low in a recent NBC poll, while the Trump administration saw a huge bump in that very same poll. So we're going to be jumping into these numbers today, breaking it down for you poll by poll. We also have some other data for you from some other polls. But before we get into it, drop down below, hit that subscribe button, make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. So, as we know, this was an NBC News poll conducted by the Hart Research Associates and Public Opinion Strategies. Talked with 1,000 registered voters, which in that poll, 44% of the United States, of them believe that the United States is on the right direction, the highest since January of 2004, while George W. Bush was president. That was about 9 months before George Bush won in re-election against John Kerry, not expected to win re-election, won re-election. So we're talking, they haven't hit 44% in 2 decades. You go through Trump administration 1.0, the Biden administration, the Obama administration, part of the Bush administration, and now back into the Trump administration. We feel like we're on the right path. It just shows the Democrats, they have drug Trump through the mud. They have taken him and drug him through the mud. They Russiagate, Russia, over and over and over again. Everything. Trump's a Russian asset. He's a Russian spy. He's yada, yada, yada. None of it landed. It did not land. He is now, for the first time in 20 years, we have not seen this before. And like we said, that is up from 27% in November of 2024. A 17-point jump since the election. And the Democrats hit a brand new low where only 27% of voters view the Democratic Party positively. This is an all-time low in NBC's polling since 1990. Democrats have not had an approval rating at this level. And there is some historical context that you could say here that most parties, when they go sub 30% approval rating, it can take, a year, 2 years, 3 years for a party to recover from something like this. Because the negative attributes of the Democrats are piling on. 55% in that poll have a negative view of the Democrat Party, with 38% it's a very negative, and just 7% saying it's very positive. Meanwhile, the Trump administration's optimism has hit almost all-time highs. Like we said, 44% approval on the country's direction, which ties directly to Trump's early moves. Republicans are driving this, but independents also boosted Trump's numbers since November. Trump is hitting on a lot of popular issues. I think there's one issue you could say, maybe two, that are hurting the president out of what he's done or hasn't done. You want to talk about immigration. You have 2/3 of the country are supporting what he's doing. You want to talk about deploying troops to the border. Talk about the mass deportation plans that he has to get people who aren't supposed to be in this country out. Very, very popular. Parts of Trump's trade war, part of Trump's trade policy are popular. There's a couple things that aren't very popular, some things that he's not doing, but for the most part, his economic policies are very, very popular. In recent polling about a month ago, most people who think that Trump is doing a good job believe that they're going to give Trump time to see these economic impacts. They understand that this is not you're not in a bike, you're not in a car, you're in a huge warship. It takes time. You need a mile or two of open sea in order to be able to turn a big warship like that. They understand that this is going to take time. In the 27% approval rating for the Democrats marked a huge drop. It's like this is below historical norms at this point, with just 95% of self-identifying Democrats viewing their party positively. Less than 2/3 of the people who make up the party view the party positively. And we're going to just say, this poll was taken before Chuck Schumer's whole stunt that he did with, we're going to have a shutdown, and then we're not going to have a shutdown, on whether he was going to vote for a Republican funding bill, I believe on March 14th, 2 days ago, when they had passed this. This poll was taken before, which means because this sparked a huge backlash from Democrats. We know that this gap could just widen further, where you see less Democrats viewing the party positively. And a Democrat pollster, Jeff Horwitz, said that the party needs a, quote, reboot, not just a rebrand. Which, if you're looking at what the Democrats have done so far, they do not agree with that. Party leadership, look at what Ken Martin had to say when he got elected as DNC chairman. That they don't need a reboot. They just need to rebrand and make sure Americans know and they feel that that Democrats understand their problem. They understand what's going on. Like we said, which is contrary to what many people in the Democratic Party believe. They believe that their views are right. The policies they hold are right. They're popular. They just aren't connecting with the American people, and it's misinformation that's getting in the way, which is totally ridiculous because everyone from the outside can see they need a complete reboot. A rebrand's going to do nothing. You're going to try and put a Band-Aid over this, and it's going to fall off pretty easily. Because you have Democrats who are doubling down on their very, very unpopular positions, like allowing transgender women in women's sports, mentally ill men in women's sports. The party needs to be rebooted. They keep doubling down on these very unpopular plans. They are trying to be this resistance to President Trump when you have a president going in the right direction. 44% of Americans. It's been 20 years since this large of a group of Americans believe that the country is on the right track. Obviously, Trump is doing something right. The Democrats ought not to obstruct with it. When you have all-time high polling for the direction of the country, why are you going to obstruct to it? And the Democrats have been caught completely flat-footed. They were caught flat-footed. That's the reality. They do not have a plan to combat Trump. They're screaming. They're throwing a hissy fit. They do not know what to do. You can start to see it with more Democrats. They're just the swearing. Listen to the interviews of the Democrats. They're swearing a lot more in these interviews. Yeah, there was a video Chuck Schumer calling, I'm not going to say it on here, but using some pretty wild language on national television. You can see they don't have a way to combat it. They're turning up the amount of swearing they're doing. They're turning up their rhetoric on Trump. But ultimately, they don't have a plan. And like we said, with 44%, this is the strongest since 2004, up from 40%. The last time it was above 40% was 2012 with Barack Obama. We have not been at this point through this first Trump administration, through the Biden administration, through the second half of the Obama administration, and now here we are. And the Republicans are fueling this optimism. We know that he's at all-time highs inside of the Republican Party for a while if they feel the country's going in the right direction. But independents are also reporting significantly higher confidence in the country's path forward. Since November, especially, like we said, the people that they polled, up 17%. The Democrat base, only 7% of voters feel very positive about the Democrats, while 55% negative, included losses among their own supporters. Their own supporters are turning on them. And like we said, this was before this recent shutdown fiasco. This poll was taken before that. So let's see what they have to say now. Let's see that gap widen in the Democrat Party. The Trump administration has hit a milestone with Democrats losing ground across the board. And 44% saying we're going in the right direction could signal strength for Trump's agenda in the 2026 midterms. He needs to keep this up. If I have some advice for him right now, what I'm going to say, get a more clear and concise message when it comes to Canada. What is the end goal? Americans support you when it comes to using reciprocal tariffs to get other countries to release economic burdens that they have on our country or to lower their tariffs. I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with an outright trade war, and I'm also okay with it when it comes to some national security concerns. If we want to protect domestic industries, if we want to manufacture chips in America so we're not reliant on China if something happens, I'm all about that. And there are a lot of Democrats who are all about that too. We want to make sure we can be self-sufficient on national security grounds. Or to a point where we have the capacity to do that. Maybe we're still relying on China for 20%, 30%, 40%. We're trying to aim by 2030 to be 20% reliant on chips from China. But have the capacity, have the money invested where we are working up to full capacity. And just try and use peace through strength. That's a big one. And then Trump needs to refocus on the domestic economy here. I understand he's trying to get his appropriation bill pushed through Congress right now, which is going to be great. That's how we're going to see Trump's domestic economic policy play out. We need to see this bill get passed, one big, beautiful bill. Tax cuts, immigration, energy, the border, money for a border wall. Furthering the Trump tax cuts, making them permanent. We can use the tax code to incentivize certain types of manufacturers to come to the United States, make their products here. We shouldn't be in a race to the bottom with China. You know how China is able to compete with us? They're able to compete with us because they pay their workers slave wages. That's how they compete. Not because they're so much more innovative than us. They treat their employees and their workers like slaves. Why is this a race to the bottom? Why should the United States trying to compete with that? I'm all for free trade. But if we're going to have free trade, we need to have free trade with countries that are going to have similar standards of workers' conditions. We need to have a more level playing field. And that doesn't mean that just because there are some minor disputes, maybe hourly wage or what they're getting paid, maybe that, they may still have a competitive advantage, but treat your workers fairly. Treat your workers fairly. Make good quality products. Stop shipping fentanyl to the United States, China. Stop ripping off American companies and manufacturing your cheap crap in China. But the Democrats at a 27% approval rate and a 55% negative still means that overall the Trump administration, even with some of these sore spots, are doing very, very good. But it puts pressure on party leaders to make sure that we do not slide back down. We need to make sure that we double down what we're doing, make sure we focus on the things that matter. We need to get economic relief to middle-class Americans. We've already seen that. Mortgage rates have come down. We need them to come down a little bit more. We've seen egg prices come down. It's because, we've gone 2 or 3 weeks without major outbreaks of the bird flu that has been affecting all of these farms where there was an incentive structure from the government where if a chicken died, if it was killed, so let's say there's a farmer, they have 10,000 chickens that are laying eggs. If it got the flu and then the farmer killed it, they got money from the federal government. This is how they were basically helping the farmers get by. So if they killed the chicken, they got a subsidy from the government. But if the chicken just died because of it, they got no money. So the government put the incentive structure in place where if the farmers kill the chicken, instead of the chicken just dying on its own, they're going to give money to it. So it sets up this incentive structure where they want to kill them. But now we've had a good cycle where there's been a couple weeks without a huge outbreak, which has caused egg prices to come down. They've come down almost 20%. Gas prices are continuing to come down as well. And I'm just going to keep saying it. This was before the poll. This poll was post Chuck Schumer and the GOP funding bill, which angered many Democrats. The next survey from NBC will be in 2025. But let's take a look. Let's take a look over here. The Democrat Party hits its lowest favorability rating in 4 recent polls. 29% favorable, 34%, YouGov, Quinnipiac 31, and NBC News 27. The Republican Party, 43% favorable, 39, 44, and 36. Still underwater, but much, much higher favorability relative to the Democrat Party right now. This is them over at NBC. Just take a listen into this.
First of all, the mood of the country. This really jumped out. We ask folks, is it on the right direction or the wrong direction? That 44%, you say right direction, that's up since November. And if that doesn't seem like a lot, the last time it cracked 40%, you got to go back to 2012. The last time it actually hit 44 or higher, January of 2004. So a lot of this is Republicans, but independents, that number is also up since the election on the direction of the country. First of all, the mood of the country.
We obviously can see the mood of the country is swinging towards President Trump. And like we said, historically, parties that go below 30% favorability really, really struggle to regain the trust of the American public for a year to 2 years. And just to recap it, 44%, America's on track, highest in 21 years. Democrats are at the lowest we have ever seen on record before with NBC. What do you see in these numbers? What do you see? What do you think is driving this? So I appreciate everybody tuning in today. Thank you so much for watching. That's going to wrap things up for today. Drop down below, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. You guys have a good night.